My girlfriend texted, "I'm moving in with my professor to focus on my studies. Don't be insecure." I replied, "Good luck with that." Then I forwarded her text to his wife, along with the apartment lease she'd asked me to co-sign. Her career opportunity vanished within 48 hours. I, 27 male, got the text on a Thursday afternoon while I was literally on my lunch break eating a mediocre turkey sandwich from the deli downstairs. My girlfriend, 25, of 2.5 years, sent me what I can only describe as the most delusional message I've ever received in my life. "Hey babe, so I've been thinking and I've decided to move in with her professor for a while. It's purely academic. He's mentoring me on my thesis and this will help me focus. His guest house is perfect for studying. Don't be insecure about this. It's a career opportunity. Love you." I read it 3 times. Then a 4th time because surely I was having a stroke or something. Let me back up and give you some context here. My girlfriend was finishing her master's in psychology at a decent state university. For the past 6 months, she'd been increasingly obsessed with her thesis advisor, a 48-year-old married professor with salt and pepper hair and what she called distinguished energy. There were dinners to discuss her research, late-night emergency consultations that somehow required her to dress up, weekend conferences that mysteriously only the 2 of them attended. I'd brought up my concerns twice. Both times she'd made me feel like a paranoid, controlling idiot. "He's a professor. He's married. He has kids practically my age. You're being absolutely ridiculous and honestly kind of insulting." So I stopped asking questions out loud, started paying attention instead. Noticed how she'd angle her phone away when texting, how she'd come home from study sessions smelling like expensive cologne, how their academic discussions always seemed to happen at wine bars. Here's the thing that really got me, though. 3 days before this text, she'd asked me to co-sign a lease for her, said she found a great studio apartment near campus that would help her finish her thesis in peace. She needed a co-signer because her credit wasn't great. Rent was $850 a month. I'd said I needed to think about it because, co-signing a lease is a massive financial commitment that could wreck my credit if things went sideways. Now she's texting me about moving into some professor's guest house. Something wasn't adding up at all. I texted back, "Good luck with that." Then I started digging. The apartment lease was still sitting in my email. She'd forwarded it to me asking me to review it and sign digitally. I looked at the property address and cross-referenced it with public records. Took me about 20 minutes on the county assessor's website, which is free and public BTW. The studio apartment near campus was actually a 2-bedroom condo in a nicer part of town, owned by guess who, her professor and his wife. They'd bought it as an investment property 2 years ago, according to the deed transfer records. So she wasn't moving into his guest house. She was asking me to co-sign a lease on an apartment he owned so she could live there, probably rent-free or close to it, with the rent going right back into his pocket, while I guaranteed the payments if things went south. The audacity was genuinely impressive in a twisted way. I sat there in my car, lunch completely forgotten, piecing the whole thing together. She wanted a safety net. If her little arrangement with the professor fell apart, she'd have me legally obligated on a lease I thought was for some random apartment. I'd be on the hook financially while she played house with a married man nearly twice her age. Here's where I made a decision that some people might call petty. I call it informative. I found the professor's wife on LinkedIn. She was a hospital administrator at a regional medical center. Seemed like a serious, accomplished professional woman. Took about 5 minutes to find her work email through the hospital's public directory. I wrote a simple, factual email. "Hi, I'm sorry to contact you this way, but I thought you should know. My girlfriend has been having an inappropriate relationship with your husband. She just informed me she's moving into your investment property to focus on her studies. She also asked me to co-sign the lease for this property, which I now understand you and your husband own. I've attached screenshots of her text to me and the lease agreement she forwarded. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news." Attached the screenshots. hit send, felt my heart pounding the entire time. Then I blocked my girlfriend's number and went back to work. Barely got anything done the rest of the afternoon, but at least I was present. Update 1, 3 days later. All right, things moved way faster than I expected. Buckle up. Within 24 hours of sending that email, I got a response from the professor's wife. Short, professional, somehow dignified despite the circumstances. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I appreciate your honesty, and I'm sorry you're dealing with this situation as well. That was it. No drama, no questions, no demands for more information, just acknowledgement. But oh man, the fallout was immediate and spectacular. My girlfriend showed up at my apartment Friday night around 8 p.m. I hadn't blocked her on everything, just her main number, so she'd been blowing up my Instagram DMs all day with increasingly frantic messages. Things like, "We need to talk," and "You're overreacting," and my personal favorite, "This doesn't have to change anything between us, LOL. The LOL really got me, like this was all just a silly misunderstanding. She used her key, massive mistake on my part not changing the locks immediately, and walked in while I was making dinner. Spaghetti carbonara, if anyone's curious. I was in a comfort food mood. "What did you do?" She was shaking with anger, face red, eyes wild. "Pasta. Want some?" I kept stirring the sauce. "You contacted his wife? Do you have any idea what you've done? Informed her that her husband is sleeping with his graduate student?" "Yeah, I understand what I did. We weren't sleeping together. It was mentorship, academic collaboration." I turned around slowly. "You were moving into an apartment he owns. You asked me to co-sign the lease so I'd be financially responsible if you defaulted. You told me not to be insecure about you literally living with a married man. Pick a story and stick with it." She switched tactics, started crying. The whole production, ugly crying, mascara running down her cheeks, hiccuping sobs. "You've ruined everything. His wife is making him cut all contact with me. I might lose my thesis advisor. My entire academic career could be over because you couldn't handle your jealousy. Sounds like consequences. How can you be so cold about this?" I set down the wooden spatula carefully. "You tried to use me as a financial backup plan while you moved in with another man, a married man with children. You lied to my face for months about the nature of your relationship. And when I finally figured out what was happening, your response was, 'Don't be insecure.' So yeah, I'm cold right now. I'm ice cold, and you need to leave your key on the counter and get out of my apartment." She tried a different approach then, softened her voice, walked toward me slowly. "Baby, I made a mistake. I got confused. He was paying attention to me, making me feel special about my work, telling me I was brilliant. Your work, right? Is that what we're calling it now? Nothing physical happened. I swear on my mother's life. I genuinely don't care if it did or didn't at this point. The intent was clearly there. The lies were definitely there. The attempt to financially trap me was absolutely there. We're done. This relationship is over." She went nuclear, started screaming about how I was controlling, jealous, pathetic, couldn't handle her success. Said I was threatened by her intelligence and her connection with someone who actually appreciated her mind. Classic Darvo, deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. I just stood there with my arms crossed until she ran out of steam. Key, counter, door. "Pick an order." She threw the key at my head, missed by about 2 feet, and stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the pictures on my wall. I changed the locks the very next morning. Cost me $180 for a Saturday locksmith call-out fee, but worth every single penny for the peace of mind. But here's where things started getting interesting. Sunday afternoon, I get a knock on my door. It's her mother. I'd met this woman maybe 4 times over the 2.5 years. Nice enough suburban mom energy, always bringing cookies to family dinners. "We need to talk about what you did to my daughter." I leaned against the doorframe, keeping my body language casual. What I did? You humiliated her. You could have handled this like an adult, privately, but instead you went to that man's wife and destroyed my daughter's entire academic future out of spite. Ma'am, your daughter was having an affair with a married man and tried to get me to co-sign a lease on his property without telling me who owned it. That's borderline fraud. I didn't destroy anything. I just turned the lights on. She says nothing physical happened between them. Then she has absolutely nothing to worry about, right? If it was all innocent academic mentorship like she claims, I'm sure the university investigation will clear everything right up. Her face went completely white. What investigation? Ah, so she didn't know about that part yet. Interesting. The one his wife apparently reported to the Title IX office. Something about inappropriate relationships between faculty and graduate students. There's a whole university policy about it, apparently. They take it pretty seriously. Her mother left without another word. Just turned and walked back to her car, looking like she'd seen a ghost. The next few days were relatively quiet. Then the professor's wife reached out again. She asked if we could meet for coffee. I was hesitant. This whole situation was messy enough without adding more connections to it. But she seemed genuinely decent in her communications, so I agreed. We met at a quiet coffee shop near my office. She was exactly what you'd expect from a hospital administrator, put together, professional, composed. But you could see the strain around her eyes if you looked closely. Dark circles hidden under concealer, the kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. I wanted to thank you properly, she said, after we sat down with our drinks, and apologize for the mess this has caused in your life. You don't need to apologize to me. You're a victim here too. Maybe, but I also stayed willfully blind for longer than I should have. This wasn't his first indiscretion, just the first one I couldn't ignore or explain away. She told me she'd been married to him for 22 years, 2 kids, both in college now. She'd suspected things before with other students, but never had concrete proof. My email was the thread that unraveled everything. Once she started pulling, the whole thing came apart fast. The lease was what really got me, she said, stirring her coffee slowly. The property is in both our names. He was going to move his mistress into our investment condo and somehow convinced her to get someone else to guarantee the payments. That way, if the relationship ended badly, we wouldn't even be on the hook financially. The layers of deception in that plan alone. She shook her head in disgust. Your girlfriend called me last week, by the way, screaming about how I ruined her life by reporting the relationship to the university, as if I was the one who made all the choices she made. That sounds about right for her, honestly. She also threatened to sue me for defamation. I had my lawyer send her a very detailed letter explaining what defamation actually requires and how truth is an absolute defense. Haven't heard from her since. I genuinely liked this woman. She had a spine made of steel under all that professional composure. Update 2 weeks later. The situation has officially escalated beyond anything I could have predicted. First, the investigation news. The university completed their preliminary review, and it wasn't good for the professor. They found a pattern. My girlfriend wasn't his first student mentee with suspicious circumstances. There were at least 2 others over the past decade, though those women apparently declined to participate in the investigation. Can't blame them, honestly. The professor got suspended pending the full hearing. Not fired yet, but definitely not teaching this semester. His name got removed from the department website. His graduate students were reassigned to other faculty. The academic grapevine was apparently on fire with gossip. My ex-girlfriend? She's in complete academic limbo. The university won't let her continue working with him, obviously, and finding a new thesis advisor mid-program is apparently a nightmare. Most faculty don't want to inherit another professor's student under normal circumstances. A student wrapped up in a scandal? Even harder. But that's not why I'm updating. The entitlement from her side has reached levels I honestly didn't think were possible. First wave, she enlisted her brother. He showed up at my apartment last Tuesday evening, big guy, maybe 6'2", clearly there to intimidate. My sister needs the security deposit back from your place. What security deposit? The one she put down when she moved in with you. I actually laughed out loud. Your sister never paid a security deposit. I've lived here alone for 4 years. She just started staying over more and more frequently over time. She's not on my lease. She never paid rent. She never contributed to utilities. There is no security deposit because she was never officially a tenant. That's not what she told me happened. Then she lied to you too. Seems to be a pattern with her, honestly. He got aggressive, stepped closer into my personal space. Look, man, she's completely broke right now. She can't even afford her rent anymore because of what you did. You owe her something. I don't owe her a single thing. And if you don't leave my property in the next 30 seconds, I'm calling the cops. He left, but not before punching the wall in my hallway hard enough to leave a dent. My neighbor across the hall opened her door, saw the whole thing, and immediately offered to be a witness if I needed one. Good neighbors are priceless. Second wave came through my job. I work in corporate accounting, boring but stable. Got called into my manager's office on Thursday. Someone contacted HR about you, he said, looking uncomfortable. Anonymous complaint. Said you've been harassing a graduate student and interfering with her academic career. My stomach dropped. Then rage. Let me guess. They didn't leave any details about how I supposedly did this? No, very vague complaint. Just accusations. I explained the whole situation. Showed him the original lease, showing the professor owned the property. Showed him the text, telling me not to be insecure about her moving in with a married man. My manager, to his credit, listened to everything without judgment. Sounds like someone's trying to cause problems for you, he said finally. I'm going to document this conversation and note that the complaint appears to be retaliatory. HR's not going to do anything with something this vague anyway. Bullet dodged, but just barely. Third wave was the most brazen. I got an actual letter in the mail, not email, physical mail, from her father. 3 pages, handwritten, about family values and forgiveness, and how I'd destroyed his little girl's dreams. The letter demanded I write a formal apology to the university, clearing her name and stating that I had made up the affair out of jealousy. He wanted me to commit perjury, essentially, to protect his daughter from consequences she earned. I didn't respond. But I did keep the letter in case I need it for a harassment complaint later. The 4th wave was the worst, though. My ex showed up at my apartment building last Saturday around 11 p.m. Security camera in the lobby caught her trying to get someone to let her in. When that didn't work, she sat on the front steps crying loudly for almost an hour until a neighbor threatened to call the cops. She left a letter under the main door addressed to me. 6 pages of absolute delusion. Here are some highlights. You were supposed to support me through everything, not destroy me when things got complicated. The relationship with Professor was about intellectual connection, something you could never understand. If you had just signed the lease like I asked, none of this would have happened. You've stolen my future, and I will never forgive you for that. I hope you're happy being alone because no woman will ever love you the way I did. The complete lack of self-awareness was almost impressive. She genuinely believed she was the victim in all of this. I documented everything, kept every screenshot, every letter, every timestamp. My buddy, who's a paralegal, said I had enough for a harassment case if she kept escalating. Final update, 6 weeks later. Time to wrap this whole thing up. The university investigation concluded 3 weeks ago. The professor was found in violation of multiple policies regarding faculty-student relationships and abuse of his position. He wasn't technically terminated, but he was given the choice to resign immediately or face formal termination proceedings that would go on his permanent academic record. He chose resignation. No golden parachute, no emeritus status, no letters of recommendation. Just gone. His wife's divorce is proceeding. She's got an excellent lawyer, and the prenup apparently had an infidelity clause. She's keeping the house, getting primary custody of their younger kid who's still technically a dependent for college purposes, and taking a significant portion of his retirement accounts. He gets the condo, the one he was going to install my girlfriend in. There's some poetry in that, I think. As for my ex-girlfriend, her academic situation stabilized somewhat. She found a new thesis advisor at a smaller program about 2 hours from here. Had to basically transfer and restart significant portions of her research. Her funding got pulled because it was tied to the original professor's grants, so she's paying out of pocket now. From what I heard through the grapevine, she's working at a coffee shop to make ends meet while finishing her degree on a delayed timeline. Could have been worse for her, honestly. She's still going to get her master's eventually, just not the prestigious path she'd planned. About a month ago, I ran into her at the grocery store near my old neighborhood. Random chance. I was there visiting a friend and stopped in for drinks. She was in the checkout line ahead of me before I could escape. She looked exhausted. The designer clothes were gone, replaced with practical stuff. The confident posture had deflated into something smaller. "Can we talk for a minute? Please?" Against my better judgment. "Fine, outside, 5 minutes." We stepped out to the parking lot. She started with what I assume was supposed to be an apology. "I know I messed up badly. The whole thing with him, I got lost. He made me feel like I was special, like my work actually mattered, like I was going somewhere important." "Your work does matter. That wasn't actually about your work, though." "I know. I know that now." She paused, struggling with something. "But you didn't have to blow up my entire life like that. You could have just broken up with me quietly." And there it was, still not getting it. "You asked me to co-sign a lease on his property without telling me who owned it. Do you understand what would have happened if I'd signed that document? If things went wrong between you two, I'd be legally responsible for an $1,850 monthly payment for an apartment I didn't live in, owned by a man you were sleeping with. You tried to financially trap me as your backup plan." "I wasn't trying to trap you. I just needed options. Security. You needed a safety net made out of my credit score and bank account while you went off to play house with your married professor. That's not confusion or insecurity. That's cold calculation." She started crying again. "I loved you. I still do in some ways. Can't you understand that? You had a really strange way of showing it. Everything got so complicated so fast. He was going to leave his wife eventually. We had actual plans together. He was never going to leave his wife. Men like that never do. You were convenient until you weren't." She flinched like I'd hit her. "I just wanted you to know, I'm genuinely sorry, for all of it. And I know you won't believe me, but nothing physical happened until the last couple months. Before that, it really was mostly emotional. That honestly doesn't make it better." "I know." She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. "Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive me?" I thought about it for a real moment, considered the question seriously. Maybe someday I just won't think about it anymore. That's the most honest answer I can give you. She nodded slowly, and we went our separate ways. Haven't seen her since. So where does that leave me now? I'm doing okay. Not great, not terrible. Just okay. Therapy's been helping a lot. Turns out being systematically gaslit and manipulated for months does a real number on your ability to trust your own judgment and instincts. My therapist says I'm making solid progress on rebuilding that. Work's stable. Got a small promotion last month, nothing earth-shattering, but it came with a decent raise and a better office. Dating? Not really. Tried one of those apps for about 2 weeks, but I kept overanalyzing every message and interaction, looking for hidden meanings and red flags. Not healthy behavior. Deleted the apps. Maybe in a few more months when I feel more solid. The professor, last I heard, took a position at some tiny liberal arts college in the middle of nowhere. Massive pay cut, zero prestige, basically academic exile. His ex-wife told me, we still grab coffee occasionally, weird friendship, but she's genuinely good people. That he's bitter about everything. Blames everyone but himself for how things turned out. My ex is still struggling according to the mutual friends who stayed neutral. She had to move back in with her parents while she finishes her degree because she couldn't afford rent anymore. The commute to her new program is brutal. The coffee shop job pays barely above minimum wage. She apparently complains constantly about how unfair life is and how I destroyed everything she'd worked for. A small part of me feels something like sympathy for her. Very small. Then I remember the lease scheme, the lies, the months of gaslighting, the "don't be insecure." And the feeling passes pretty quickly. Some folks in my earlier posts asked if I regretted sending that email, if I felt guilty about the professor losing his career, his marriage falling apart, my ex's academic future getting derailed. Honestly, no, I don't. I didn't create this situation. I just refused to be complicit in it. I refused to be the financial safety net while someone else got the relationship benefits. I refused to keep questioning my own sanity when my instincts were screaming that something was wrong. The professor made his choices over and over again for years. My ex made hers repeatedly for months. The wife deserved to know the truth about what was happening in her own marriage, and I deserved to not be used as a financial patsy in someone else's affair. That's not revenge. That's just refusing to be a doormat. Although I won't pretend, watching that whole house of cards collapse in 48 hours was genuinely satisfying on some level. Anyway, thanks for following along, Internet. Time to close this chapter and figure out what comes next.